हेलो फ्रेंड्स, वेलकम टू मनोलॉ क्लासेस। आई एम गौतम दीक्षित। आज के इस वीडियो में हम वेडनेसडे का सितंबर 29 का द डेली हिंदू एनालिसिस करेंगे। तो इम्पॉर्टेंट न्यूज़ आज का हम देखते हैं। सो द फर्स्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट न्यूज़ इज दैट द बाईपोल्स टू 3 लोकसभा एंड 30 असेंबली सेज टू बी हेल्ड ऑन October 30. So the Election Commission of India हैज़ अनाउंस्ड द बाई इलेक्शंस। बाई इलेक्शंस का मतलब होता है कि एक होता है हमारा जनरल इलेक्शन जो हर 5 साल पे होता है, और अगर if the seat becomes vacant due to resignation or death of the members in legislative assemblies or in the Lok Sabha, then the by polls or by elections are held by the Election Commission of India. Now अब क्योंकि पैंडेमिक चल रहा था, so the by elections has been held in consultation with the states, taking into account the pandemic situation in the state and the other factors. Now right to activist, right to information activist. तो यहाँ पे एक रिपोर्ट के हिसाब से बिहार हैज़ प्रूव टू बी द हॉस्टाइल टेरेन फॉर राइट टू इंफॉर्मेशन एक्टिविस्ट। अगर हम 2010 से 2010 टू 2021 क्या देखें तो 20 RTI एक्टिविस्ट हैव बीन किल्ड इन बिहार अलोन। द एक्ट विच केम इन 2005 इज it promotes the transparency and accountability in the government services. Now Deshbhakti curriculum, this type of questions can come at CLAT, that which of the following state has launched Deshbhakti curriculum on the occasion of Shahid-e-Azam Bhagat Singh's birth anniversary. So Bhagat Singh's birth anniversary is annually observed on September 28. So it is annually observed on September 28. September 28. Now what happens is that on this day the Delhi government has launched a Deshbhakti curriculum. It will focus on educating the students about the meaning of Deshbhakti, how the role of our freedom fighters in achieving the independence of India, and what kind of Deshbhakt or patriotism we need in today's time. Then it calls for Deshbhakti Dhyan, that the first activity of the Deshbhakti class will be reflecting on and paying gratitude for the country, freedom fighters, and any 5 persons who the children find to be Deshbhakt. Then we will have classroom. Then the curriculum will have classroom discussion, which will encourage the students to think and reflect deeply on their role and responsibility towards the country. Then the class activity will include visualization, self-introspection. Then homeworks will be given to them, and then a 360-degree evaluation on the curriculum. According to the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis, this is a research think tank. It has said that the India's green energy installation capacity was reduced during the pandemic. So if you will just see the figure, then the target of the India is to generate 100 gigawatt of renewable energy by March 2023. Now if we talk of today's, so the target capacity for solar energy is 100 gigawatt, but installed capacity is 43.94 gigawatt. We are less than halfway mark also. Then wind energy, 60 gigawatt is the target by 2023, and 39.58 gigawatt is the installed one. Then small hydro energy, 5 gigawatt, it is now, we are very near to it, 4.79 gigawatt. Then bioenergy, 10 gigawatt and 10.17 gigawatt. Now India has already said that it will install 175 gigawatt of green energy by 2022 and 450 gigawatt by 2030. Now about the coal stock, it is saying that the coal stocks with the Coal India Limited, which is India's largest coal producer, it has a 2-month supply. But if you will see the coal stock positions with the thermal power stations, so they have to maintain the 21-day stocks, but most of them have less than 21 day of stock. Now what has happened over here is that after the global recovery, the demand for coal, especially from Asian countries like China and India, and also from Japan, and then South Korea, Europe and US, the demand for coal has increased. So the cost of importing the coal has increased. So the government of India has decided to buy most of the coal from Coal India Limited, and hence the Coal India Limited, which is the largest coal producer, is maintaining the stockpile of coal for the next 5 months. Now if the tariff on coal increases, if the coal import price increases, so definitely there will be higher prices for electricity in India. Along with that, the report also says that if we want to manage the growing daily peak demand in India, so we should focus on innovative solutions and flexible and dynamic generation solutions such as battery storage, pumped hydro storage, peaking gas fired capacity, flexible operation of its existing coal fleet, India's coal fleet. Then Defense Ministry issues order for OFB dissolution. So Ordnance Factory Board, which was established in 1775, now the Defense Ministry has issued an order for the dissolution of Defense Ordnance Factory Board, and now it will be converted into the function of this OFB board will be given to 7 defense PSUs. Then the 70,000 employees of OFB belonging to group A, B and C, they will be transferred to this new defense PSUs on terms of foreign service without any deputation allowance which is given to the foreign services. Now Sanjeev Sarnyal, who is the principal economic advisor of India, now he has asked that he has reiterated that India's economy is likely to grow in double digit in 2021 and as well as in next year. The main reason for this growth will be higher revenue collection to the center. As we can see, the GST collection from past few months is about rupees 1 lakh crore. Then the direct tax collection in India has also bounced back. So based on that, the India's growth in the next 2 years will be in double digit. At the same time, this piece of article is also highlighting to bridge the urban infrastructure gap between the metro cities and other cities. So we have to change the governance structure, change the way the urban infrastructure is developed to improve the cities in India. Deadline for promotion quotas for the disabled. So in 2020, the Supreme Court passed a verdict in Siddha Raju versus State of Karnataka, mandating the government to give 4% reservations in promotion to the persons with disabilities. But now there are two different judgments. If you will see, the Union of India versus National Federation of Blind and Rajiv Kumar Gupta versus Union of India in 2013 and 16. Now the position of the central government is that there is a conflicting judgment in these two, and due to that there is a delay in implementing this 4% reservation. If you will see, the section 34 of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, it mandates that every appropriate government shall appoint in every government establishment not less than 4% of the total number of vacancies in the cadre strength in each group of the post for the people with benchmark disability. Now the ICMR report has come. It is very crucial because schools are reopening in many states. So here the first important information which is coming is that according to the Sero survey which has already been conducted, evidence suggests that children aged 12 and above, they are at the higher risk of getting COVID-19 infection as compared to children below the age of 12 years. Okay. The second thing the report highlights is, the ICMR highlights, is that the school should reopen in phases, first beginning with primary schools and then for other children, and it should be allowed to function safely by following all the mitigation measures. The second is that it highlights the importance of ventilation. It highlights the importance of ventilation, and it also the report also suggests that wearing of mask is very important. If the children are wearing masks, especially who are aged 12 and above, then it is very much required. Then there are certain more things, that certain things should be prohibited, like air conditions should be avoided. It should be replaced with exhaust fan to ensure proper ventilation and to stop the spread of virus. The second is routine temperature or symptom checking in schools should be avoided due to limited evidence on their utility, but it recommended that schools should have access to on-site testing facilities. Okay, so this is very important implementations to be made in the schools. Zojila Tunnel, the news is about the Zojila Tunnel. So Zojila Tunnel, first of all, it is going to connect Srinagar with Leh. The second thing is that it is going to reduce the traveling time from 3.5 hours to only 15 minutes, and it is going to be Asia's longest bi-directional tunnel, which will allow all-weather connectivity. All-weather connectivity means what? In any weather, whether it is snowfall or rainfall or summer or winter, it will provide all-weather connectivity between Ladakh and Kashmir. Now the second is about J More Tunnel. So it is being developed at Sonmarg, and it will provide all-weather connectivity with Srinagar. SEBI, the Security Exchange Board of India, the chairman of SEBI is Ajay Tyagi. So the SEBI has come up with the new norms for gold exchanges. The gold exchanges were announced in the Union Budget that SEBI will soon release the guidelines for electronic gold receipt tradings. Okay, so what is happening here is that SEBI has announced the new framework for gold exchange as well as vault managers, so that the trading in securities these securities are called as electronic gold receipt can occur. Now what is the problem with India is that India is a gold importing country. So when we are importing the gold, we are accepting the price which is set by the global suppliers of gold. But what is happening, that why the people are buying gold? Because gold is the hedge against inflation. Okay, so what is happening, that the government is planning to replace the physical gold with the paper gold. So how the function will take place? First, that those who have physical gold, they can deposit their gold to vault managers. The vault manager will issue them electronic gold receipts. Now this electronic gold receipts can be traded on any security exchange. So this is the whole story of electronic gold receipt. Taliban has announced that they will follow the 1967 monarchy constitution. So this constitution was passed during the time of King Muhammad Jahir Shah, who was later overthrown. So it was ratified in 1963, and for 10 years Afghanistan was ruled under this constitution. The highlight of this constitution is that it gave women the right to vote for the first time, and it allowed women for the increased participation in politics. But if we just give attention to the Islamic Emirate rules of Taliban in Afghanistan, then it is that they are not allowing women to participate in politics, to get the education, to do the job, or to walk out of their home. So this is in the contravention of 1964 constitution. So the Taliban, they have announced that any provisions of this 1964 monarchy constitution, if it is in contravention of the Sharia law, it will be discarded. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a corridor which connects Xinjiang province or northwest China with the Gwadar port in Pakistan. Now Pakistan is exploring the option of expanding this CPEC to Afghanistan. Now CPEC, what is CPEC? CPEC, it is a part of Belt and Road Initiative of China, and under this China is developing a corridor, industrial corridor, infrastructure projects from Xinjiang to Gwadar port, costing $60 billion. Now there was some problem related to remarks made by the 46th President Joe Biden regarding Indian media and comparing with the US media, and we have to see here we have to see only the facts. So if we see one person from US press has said that there is no comparison between US press and Indian press. If we see the ranking of the Indian press, So the Indian press ranking is 142nd in ranking released by Reporters Without Borders. So the press freedom in India is quite low according to this report. Now coming to the editorials, tackling the moist. Now in this editorial, the factual information is that according to the Home Ministry, the geographical influence of moist have reduced from 96 districts in 2010 to 41 currently. Now in this article, it is showing that the Communist Party of India, which are limited to the remote and densely forest of central and east central India, it is comparing the approach. It is not comparing, but it is discussing the two approaches of Naxalites and approaches of government, and what is the problem with the Naxalite approach, which leads to violence and killing of tribals on large scale. And then second, it discusses about the approach of government should be pro development in this region, which is the basis of dissatisfaction of the people with the government. So this dissatisfaction of the tribal people should be removed through the process of development. So now going into the discussion, now in this here it discussed that the moist, instead of mobilizing discontent with the Indian state by projecting its weakness and inclusion and welfare, the moist have given primacy to violence. Okay, so here it was not like a movement which was focusing on exposing the weakness of the state, Indian state, but it relied on armed struggle. Now this armed struggle had its fallout, which led to large number of poor tribal people, especially in Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, caught in violence. The second is that the moist insurgency, which still has potential in South Bastar in Chhattisgarh and Andhra Odisha border and Jharkhand. Now here the author is saying that the state, what should be the approach of the state? The state should focus on welfare and infrastructure building, even as security forces are trying to weaken the moist. Now here the author is saying that purely security driven approach, which is fraught with human rights violation, is not going to solve the problem of moist insurgency. Development and welfare should come in this area to solve this problem permanently. Now about Germany, no clear winner. So recently elections were concluded in Germany. Over here there are two important parties. One is Social Democrats, SPD party, and the next is, which was led by Angela Merkel, that is Christian Democrat. So the Social Democrat, they have got 25.7% of the vote. Christian Democrats, they have got 24.1% of vote. Now there are two parties which are known as kingmakers. One is Greens, they focus on environment, which is 14.8%. The next one is Free Democrats, they have got 11.5%. Now Olaf Scholz, who has led this Social Democrat party, now he is ready to form a coalition with Green and Free Democrats. But Armin Laschet, who led Conservative Party CDU, they are also planning to form a coalition government with Greens and Free Democrats. So in Germany now it is fixed that there will be a coalition government. The article about NEET. So as we know that the Tamil Nadu government set up a committee under retired Madras High Court Justice A.K. Rajan, which led to certain conclusion that because of the introduction of NEET, the proportion of rural area students and government school students have declined in the state's medical education. So now if we just look at the legality and other things, so now we will see that medical education is on the concurrent list. So the 7th schedule of the constitution has 3 lists: union list, state list and concurrent list. On concurrent list, state government and central government both can make the law, and if there is repugnancy between central and state law, then central law will prevail. But if we see the maintaining the standards in higher education, that is the part of union list under Act 66. Now Section 14 of the National Medical Commission Act provides for NIT. Okay. Now NIT has a history. Now since Atal Bihari Vajpayee government, there was a proposal to set up the NIT. Then in TMA Pai Foundation judgment, the Supreme Court had supported the common entrance exam for medical exams. Then Medical Council of India notified NIT in 2013, but in Christian Medical College Welfare Association versus Union of India and others, it was struck down. Then what happened? The Indian Medical Council Act 1956 was amended, and Section 10D was inserted to empower Medical Council of India to conduct NIT. And when there was a review petition filed, the Supreme Court ordered the conduct of NIT from 2016 itself. Now over here there is one issue of minority institutions. Now minority institutions have certain protection under Article 30 of the Constitution, but NIT, if there is any medical college set up by the Minority Commission, so they don't have the choice to select the candidates for their medical courses. But if we see the case, okay, so there was a case in which Supreme Court had said that minority institutions can have their own way of selecting the students if their selection process is transparent for last 25 years. But now see, there are certain problems with NIT also, that leaking of the question paper. Then definitely the report has shown, the AK Rajan report has shown that the proportion of students coming from the rural area government school and disadvantageous or weaker sections of the society have went down. Then NIT promotes the culture of coaching, which benefits only rich students. So these are some of the problems. The second is that the author is posing the question that NIT is only one exam. Is one exam enough to test the aptitude of the person for the medical exam? So this is one of the question posed by it. The second problem highlighted over here is that NIT is totally based on CBSE pattern, but there are state government schools also. So over here the state government schools also have a disadvantage in examinations like NIT. Now in this article here, this article is about the role of Germany in era where fighting climate change, fighting poverty, fighting unemployment, and where now the broader thinking is that sustainable development means that we have to fight climate change to eliminate poverty, and unemployment is gaining currency. So definitely there is a need of congruence of approach between India and Germany, and especially when Germany is going to head G7 countries in 2022, and India is going to preside over the G20 in 2023. So this is going to offer an opportunity to strengthen the process of fostering a focused dialogue among the political leaders and policy making for the common future. Then if we see the role of Germany, so Germany has a very larger role. If we see that Germany is the third biggest economy in terms of its share in global trade, and it needs to partner with countries like India to fight the emerging challenges like climate change, social inequalities, poverty, and to ensure social justice, promoting social peace, political participation, and cultural diversity. Now especially after COVID-19 pandemic, there is a new challenges which has emerged, like to make financial markets, digitization and economy sustainable, social protection, food and health systems which needs to be more robust, education, science and innovation, inclusive institutions, and promoting the rule-based regional and multilateral governance. So now these challenges can be fought when there is cooperation among the nations. So that's why the author calls for equitable cooperation between various countries. The second the author highlights is that along with global cooperation, there is also a need of strengthening the governance structure. So we have to develop a system where domestic factors and externally oriented sectors should work together to tackle the growing problem. Now, when the COP26 is going to be held in Glasgow, okay, so here there is an opportunity to get a platform to negotiate investment into the greenhouse gases and transformation of India's energy and transport sector. The next news is about judicial pendency. So judicial pendency. Now if you will see the justice delivery system, there is a common saying, justice delayed is justice denied. If we see the problem of Indian judiciary, so a case pendency and vacancy in judiciary is two important reasons leading to backlog of cases. Okay, the second is that when the justice is delayed, it gives the perpetrators of crime a type of motivation that even if they are caught, okay, the justice delivery system will take a lot of time and they can flout the rules and procedures and they can get away with the justice system. So filling the vacancies are very important. Now if you will see how to reduce this situation, so the authors are suggesting two steps. The first, they are saying that we have to increase the strength of judges, which can be done in 2 years. So we don't need 70,000 judges. That even if we just increase the strength of the judges by 21%, we can get that number where the judicial vacancies can be overcome. The second, they are saying about the use of technology like e-courts, e-filing of cases. This will help the poor citizens and faster delivery of justice. Along with that, if there are computer based algorithms which are deciding the case listing, case allocation and adjournment, and judges are given over 5% chances to override this, then this system will ensure transparency and equality, and the powerful people cannot play with law, okay, and they cannot take the unfair advantage with the justice system. The second is that there is no change in law required for such changes if government and judiciary, if they decide together to implement this policies, then it can be done very easily. Now coming to the in pursuit of happiness, here in this article the author is highlighting that law and how it is operated, law institutions and how they are operated in India or any country will determine the degree of happiness. So over here, if we say that the United Nations World Happiness Report of 2021, it ranks India at 139 out of 149 countries, okay, and especially during COVID-19 this happiness index went quite down. Now here the author is suggesting that we have to change the aim of the law. The aim of the law should not be retributive, means punishment seeking. It should be distributive. It should be distributive, means distribution or sharing of goods between community, which is going to increase the happiness. The second is that again this article is talking about the pendency of cases in the court. So as long as there is greater pendency of cases in the court, there will be delay in the judiciary system, and then there will be unhappiness. Today what has happened is that the criminal justice system is, the author is saying, is also one of the source of unhappiness among common people. The third is lower crime rates, happier societies. So if the crimes are low in the society, then those societies are happy. The next is bureaucracy's digital challenge. In this article the author has discussed that how the bureaucrats should use the social media. If we compare the characteristics of bureaucracy and social media, so bureaucracy is follows anonymity, there is a hierarchy, there is a formal relationships, there is standard procedures to be followed. So if we see social media, they promote openness, transparency and flexibility, but still social media can be used for improving the governance. So what are the benefits? The benefits are that many civil servants can become accessible with common people, and public delivery issues can be improved with social media. The second is that many perceive bureaucracy as opaque, but social media can improve their transparency. The third is that it provides an opportunity to bureaucracy to shape the public debate or public discourse without compromising on political neutrality. For the next one is that it focuses both on value and fact-based governance. Now, in the next paragraph, it is saying that now today how the civil servants are using the social media. Today the social media, the civil servants are using the social media to promote for self promotion. So that is not the good way of using the social media. They should use this social media for improving the governance. Now the next topic is about PM 2.5, particulate matter 2.5. If you see the particulate matter 2.5, it is one of the leading reasons of death due to air pollution. And if we see among the BRICS countries, so in India 95.6 deaths per thousand people were recorded in 2019 due to particulate matter 2.5 exposure. Now we did it back also that WHO has now updated its air pollution guideline limits, where particulate matter 2.5 for average 24-hour concentration should not be more than 15 microgram per meter cube. Earlier it was 25 microgram per meter cube. Now in India we follow National Ambient Air Quality Standards, which was revised in 2019, and according to it the upper limit on PM 2.5 is 60 microgram per meter cube, which is much higher. You can see it is 4 times higher than the what WHO standard is. So that's all for today. We will meet again tomorrow with Daily Hindu News Analysis. Till then, take care. Have a nice day. Thank you.